Welcome. In this lecture, we will be discussing objects and classes in Java. So, a class is a blueprint from which individual objects are created. We want our class to be a grouping of conceptually related state and behavior. Examples of classes include animal and vehicle. A class declaration contains declarations of instance methods and instance variables. We will be taking a look at these instance methods and variables in the next few slides. So before I move on to the next slide, let me explain the examples a little bit more. Now if you take the first example, animal, you can see that for example, under animal, let's take the dog and the cat. A very simple example, dog and a cat. So if you look at them, they both have similar behaviors. Like for example, uh, we can say both of them walk, eat, sleep, and so on. So that itself satisfies our second point. We want our class to be a grouping of conceptually related state and behavior. So as you can see, similar behavior. Then if you look at vehicle, vehicle has also similar behaviors, like for example accelerating, braking or stopping, and so on. So as you can see, these two examples satisfy the definition of a class. Now let's move on and take a look at instance variables. Instance variables are declared in a class but outside a method, constructor, or any block. They are usually declared as private. Instance variables are created when an object is created with the use of the new keyword, and destroyed when the object is destroyed. The instance variables are visible for all methods, constructors, and block in the class. Normally it is recommended to make these variables private. However, visibility for subclasses can be given for these variables with the use of access modifiers. Access modifiers will be discussed a little bit later on in the slides, and it will be discussed further in a separate video, so stay tuned for that video. Let's move on to the final point. Instance variables have default values. For numbers, the default value is 0. For booleans, it is false, and for object references, it is null. Values can be assigned during the declaration or within the constructor. So let me go through this last point a little bit more in detail. So now let's say that you have an instance variable string name, that is a variable private string name. So as you can tell, it's a string, which means that strings are objects, so hence the default value of that instance variable name will be null, because object references default value is null. Or if we take a number, for example phone number, as the variable, private integer phone number, let's say, in that case the default value will be 0. So these default values come in handy, especially when you're looking at things like the default constructor. Again, this default constructor will be discussed in a different video, so don't worry about it for now. Just know that instance variables have default values unlike normal variables. Now let's move on to instance methods. Instance methods belong to the object of the class, not to the class. Instance methods represent the behavior and alter the state of an object, which means they manipulate an object. Every individual object created from the class has its own copy of the instance methods of that class. Instance methods are not stored on a per instance basis even with virtual methods. They are stored in a single memory location, and they only know which object they belong to because this pointer is passed when you call them. So let me iterate on the second point a little bit more. So the second point states that instance methods represent the behavior and alter the state of an object. They manipulate an object. So what you have to understand here is that instance methods are different from static methods. So there are different types of methods. there are instance methods and static methods. Static methods act on they don't act on a particular object. That is the difference between static and instance methods. Now, instance methods require you to create an object before you can invoke that particular method. So that's where instance methods are limited. But when it comes to static methods, they can act on anything except for particular objects. They can act on any other thing. So anyway, moving on from that, in the third point it states that every individual object created from the class has its own copy of the instance methods of that class. And that is true, because for every object that you create, you can call that particular method separately. But in reality, now if you look at the fourth point, it's a little bit contradicting, because what the fourth point is stating is that they are not stored on an per instance basis. So that's the thing. Basically, in the memory, you get all these instance methods, and what you're passing is the pointer. The pointer is what's the reference to that particular object. So the instance method knows that depending on the pointer, that it is supposed to act on this particular object. So that's the reality. If I was to repeat that again, what happens here is, when you take an instance method and when you call it, the pointer to that particular object is passed. So that is how the instance method knows that it's acting on a particular object. It does not mean that there are several methods for each object. That's not the case. In reality, the case is that it is it's only stored in a single memory location, and it is called by passing the pointer. We will discuss an example a little bit later on. Now let's move on with the presentation. Access modifiers. The declaration of every instance variable, a constructor, an instance method, begins with an access modifier. There are two main types, public and private. Public means that the entity can be accessed by other classes, whereas private means that the entity is only accessible from within the class itself. In practice, instance variables will be private and instance methods and constructors will be public. So this third point, what they are trying to say here is that, now if you look at classes, what happens is, within a class you get both the instance instance variable followed by the constructor and followed by the instance methods. So what happens in classes are that the instance variables are declared private, and you use the instance methods which are declared public to act on those variables. This will be again explained in a later slide, a little bit later. If you don't understand now, don't worry. But what it simply means that instead of giving direct access to variables within a class, what we are doing here is we are using instance methods to act on each object. So in the variables for each object, you have to use the relevant instance method to act on the object. Let's move on with the presentation. What is an object in Java? In Java, an object is created from a class. Hence, we say an object is an instance of a class. An object has three fundamental aspects: the state, behavior, and the identity. The state are the attributes or properties, also known as data and variables. The behavior are the operations or interactions, which are the methods. The identity is a unique identifier, which in reality is the address in the memory. So again, if I was to iterate that, the state is also known as the variables, the behavior is also known as the methods, and the identity is the address in the memory. Always remember this. I have made this instance of a class bit in red because it's very important. I will show you that in the next class, in the next slide. See, this is an example of an object. Tom is an instance of the class person. See, Tom is the object and person is the class. Tom is an instance of the class person. That's where the previous instance of a class, uh, say the instance of a class part comes in. Okay, so this is an example of an object. Tom is an instance of the class person, and it has attributes such as name and age, and it has operations such as walks, eats, sleeps, so on. Its identity is the unique identifier. So here in this case we can use something like a name or national identity card and so on. Let's move on to the next example of an object. A car. Car is an instance of the class vehicle. See, car is the object and class is vehicle. So as you can see, there are few attributes for a car, like the make of the car, the model, and the behavior are things like accelerates, brakes, and so on. The identity can be the number plate of the car because it is a unique identifier. Let's move on to the next slide. Steps taken when creating an object. So there are 3 steps when creating an object from a class: declaration, instantiation, and initialization. Declaration is basically a variable declaration with a variable name with an object type. So I will elaborate that after I complete instantiation and initialization. Instantiation means the new keyword is used to create an object. Initialization means that the new keyword is followed by a call to the constructor. This call initializes the new object. So declaration, basically it's simply a variable declaration like you would normally declare a string name. That is what declaration is. Instantiation is where you use the new keyword. That is how you instantiate an object using the new keyword. Initialization is assigning an object to that particular variable that you declared earlier. So for example, I can tell you one now is object object equals new object. That is the easiest, that is the simplest way of showing. I will show it in IntelliJ. That might make it a little bit more clearer. So I'll write it here. Object equals new object. So as you can see here, this bit is the declaration where we declare a variable. When we use the new keyword, it's known as instantiation, and this is initialization where we call the constructor. This is a call to the constructor. You should note that the constructor is also a method. That's why we call it like a method by using the brackets. So this is how you create an object in Java. Let's move on to the next slide. Class demonstration account. Okay, so we are going to do a small demonstration of a class. This is known as the bank account class. So first of all, we have to represent the class using UML. So if you look at this is what a UML class would look like in a class diagram. So as you can see here, this is the name of the class, this is the state, and this is the behavior. Let me use a laser pointer, I might make it, yeah. So here, this is the name, this is the state, and this is the behavior, right here. Behavior is what the class can do: withdraw, deposit, get balance, and so on. So as you can see here, in this side we get minuses and pluses. Minus means that it's defined as private, and plus means that it's defined as public. So this is the bank account class. Let's type this out in IntelliJ and see what happens. So yeah, the next slide is provide a Java implementation of the class in IntelliJ. Let's go back to the previous slide and let's open IntelliJ. Okay, let's create a new class. the bank account. Okay, so first of all we had to declare the two variables, the instance variables. So okay, if you look at the slide, you can see that here minus was used, which means it's private. So private double balance. Also we had to declare the second variable, which is account num, string account num. Okay, now if you look at the class diagram, they haven't written any constructor here. The reason what that means is that the default constructor will be used. Now don't worry about this default constructor, we will be discussing that in a separate tutorial. So let's move on with the normal methods. Okay, the withdraw method, as you can see it's plus here, plus, so that means public void. If you look here, it says void, and the name of the class is name of the method is withdraw, and the variable passed in is a double variable amount. Okay, let's not provide any implementation yet for now. Let's define the next method. The next method is public void deposit double amount. Okay, let's move on to the next method. Public void, sorry, this is not void, this is double, this returns double get balance. So public, so now as you can see, this is known as a get method. A get method, or also known as a getter method, is used to return a value that's stored in an instance variable. So IntelliJ has a handy feature of being able to generate this getter method without us having to type it. So I'll just type it for now. In IntelliJ in Windows, what you have to do is you have to go within the class, hit Alt plus insert at the same time, and then you get this generate list. So you can select generate getter, and you can select which variable you want. Because I have already typed this get balance method, it's not showing right here. If I erase it, it will show. Let me show that you know. Alt insert getter, if we select balance, see it generated the get balance method for me automatically. Okay, let's move on to the final method, public void close. Yeah, public void close, that was the final method. So our account class is complete. So as you can see here, we have the balance variable, account num variable, withdraw, deposit, get balance, and close. Everything seems to be in order. Now let's move on to the next slide. Okay, constructors in Java. Every class has a constructor. A constructor is used to create objects of that class. If we do not explicitly write a constructor for a class, the Java compiler builds a default constructor for that class. This constructor sets each variable to its default value. Okay, let me stop you there. Remember I was talking about default values for instance variables? See? Wait, I'll go back to that slide, then you might remember. See, if you look, let me show with the laser pointer. See this right here. Instance variables have default values. For numbers the default value is 0, for booleans it is false, and for object references it is null. See, so let me go back to the previous slide. See, if we do not explicitly write a constructor for that class, so Java builds a default constructor. So what this default constructor does is, since it has not been explicitly told any value to set the variables to, it will set each variable value to its default value. So that's where default values come in handy for instance variables. Let's move on to the next point. Each time a new object is created, at least one constructor will be invoked. The main rule of constructors is that they should have the same name as the class. A class can have more than one constructor. So the last point we will be discussing a little bit more in depth later on. Let me show you, for the bank account example, let me show you what a constructor would look like. So it will simply be public. All instance methods and constructors are public bank account. So if you look here, this is I have managed to create a default constructor for the bank account class. Now the thing is, we don't really need to create a default constructor because Java will automatically do that for us. But if we want to have many constructors, like for example, let me create one that will initialize the values correctly. Let me generate a constructor. So again, alt insert constructor and select both the variables, and then you get this. So see, now we have two constructors, more than one constructor in the same class. So what it will do is, if you pass in no parameters, it will go to this method and this constructor, and it will end up instantiating the instance variables with the default values. But if you explicitly mention the values to be instantiated, then this will go to this particular method here. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. Types of constructors in Java. Java allows two types of constructors, namely no argument constructors and parameterized constructors. No argument constructors in Java do not accept any parameters. Instead, when using these constructors, the instance variables of a method will be initialized with fixed values for all objects. So no argument constructors are also known as default constructors. That's what I showed you in this slide over here. In IntelliJ, this is a no argument constructor. Okay. The next category is parameterized constructors. Most often, you will need a constructor that accepts one or more parameters. Parameters are added to a constructor in the same way that they are added to a method. Just declare them inside the parentheses after the constructor's name. So if you look at IntelliJ again here, this is a parameterized constructor. Let me put a comment there. And this is a parameterized constructor. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. Object references. A variable of a class type holds a reference to an object. A reference is a pointer form of a memory address where the object is stored. The variable doesn't hold the object itself. So this is a very important point, this second point over here. Variable doesn't hold the object itself. That's the thing. Now if you look at Java, and if you declare a variable, like for example, like I showed earlier, let me show that again. Okay, see, object equals new object. So now this is the variable right here, object. This is the variable. So this variable right here doesn't hold the object exactly. What it does in Java is that it holds only the pointer. The pointer is the memory address where the object is stored. So let's move on to the next point. The variable can go out of scope, but the object can still exist, providing it is referenced by some other variable. Objects can be referenced by several references and hence variables. When passing objects as parameters to a method, it will be referencing the same object in the heap. So this last point is very important to note. When passing objects as parameters to a method, it is important to note that it will be referencing the same object in the heap. Again, if you look at the first point, you can understand that what happens is we are not passing the object to the method, instead we are passing the reference to the object in the method. Call by value and return by value. The parameter passing mechanism used by Java is called call by value. This means that the value of a parameter is always copied and a parameter variable initialized within the copy. Returning a value from a method works in the same way as parameter passing. The value returned is a copy of the value computed in the return statement. So what you have to understand here is objects are not passed as parameters, only the reference to objects. The reference is copied. And it is the same thing when returning an object from a method. You are simply passing the reference to the object. That's what happens. Let's move on to the next slide. So what is garbage collection in Java? This is a simple outline and this will be covered in depth in a separate video. Garbage are unreferenced objects that can be deleted by the Java garbage collector. The garbage collector searches for such objects and deletes them in order to free space in the heap. Garbage is automatically collected by the JVM. So for now, these 3 points are enough. Let me elaborate a little bit more on that. So for example, if you might be wondering what exactly are these unreferenced objects. So unreferenced objects are objects that used to have a reference, but then now they don't. Let me show you a quick example. Let's use the previous bank account to create 2 objects. Okay, so this is a very simple example. So what happens here is we are creating 2 objects. First object is bank account 1 and second object is bank account 2. What we are doing here is we are taking the reference of account 2 and putting it to bank account 1. We are taking the reference of the object created here as account 2 and then making the value inside account 1 variable equal to account 2 variable. So by doing that, what happens is that the object reference stored in the variable account 1 becomes equal to the reference to this object here. So then this particular object that was created in the beginning becomes unreferenced. So this object will be eligible for garbage collection. Okay, that's the end of the lecture. Thank you very much for listening. Hope to see you soon in a new lecture or tutorial video. Thank you.